This video was brought to you by this comment. So about 4 months ago, Gamespot also released a different video called You Should Be Playing WarFrame. Apparently it's pretty good. I haven't seen it, so that's what this video is going to be about today. We're going to be doing a just blind reaction to it. As per usual, I'll be stopping and starting it if I find something that I want to add, or if there's something that I think is wrong, or for whatever reason, I will just be stopping and starting. So if you want to watch that video by itself, without my face in it, without it stopping and starting and all that jazz, then definitely you'll want to go and check out the link that I'll be leaving in the video description below. Otherwise, let's get into it.
One of the most important modern video games is about to be 6 years old, and not nearly enough of us are talking about it.
6 years old? Hang on.
One of the most important modern video games is about to be 6 years old, and not nearly enough of us are talking about it.
One sec. Warframe.com. Account management. I'm sorry, dude. The game is already 6 years old. Hang on. This was from 4 months ago though, so he might actually be right. I'm not 100% sure. I might actually, you know what? I might be wrong on this one because this video is 4 months old. We might have actually crossed into that 6-year threshold since then. But this was published in March, and I started playing in March 2013. I think I remember I started playing in like early March, so I don't know. I think this guy might be wrong. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, let's continue. TSD music. Okay, I'm not sure if this video is meant to be for new players, depending on, like, basically the name say You Should Be Playing WarFrame suggests to me that this is supposed to be for new players. Showing the new war stuff that quickly. Anyway. Especially splicing it with this stuff, which is like supposed to be new player footage, new player stuff.
Since its release, Warframe has garnered almost 50 million players.
We've surpassed 50 million since, I think. I remember seeing a number as like 52.4 million registered losers. I don't know.
Frequented Steam's most played games list. It has launched on every current console, building an avid community across live streams and social media alike.
It's even hosted a yearly convention for dedicated players.
Whoa, what's with this guy's lighting? I mean, I guess if it's for effect, cool, but the I'm just saying, the pink hair lighting, I mean, it's a bit weird. In my opinion, it's a bit strange.
By all accounts, Warframe should be in the spotlight, but it's not. In 2013, Warframe was a passion project. Developer Digital Extremes had just finished years of contract work and needed to release an alpha of its next title to stay afloat. The result was a promising, albeit skeletal, build of the studio's sci-fi loot shooter. Warframe was also free to play at a time when that label carried a stigma. Although players and critics
League, mobile games
took note as it released on PC, PS4, and Xbox One, the majority, including me, quickly moved on. Destiny preview coverage was reaching a fever pitch, and comparisons to Bungie's loot shooter were unfavorable for the smaller Digital Extremes.
I disagree with that. The comparison between Warframe in 2015? When did Destiny come out? When did Destiny come out? I think it came out in like 2015. Destiny 1 release date was 2014. Okay, he might be right.
Lastly, it didn't help that Warframe was, and still is, very complex. It's complex in a good way, and I'll get to that, but in its early hours, Warframe can be overwhelming. Many people reach this screen and decide they're not smart or determined enough to decipher it. Others are uncomfortable with the general lack of handholding, feeling analysis paralysis in the face of so many ways to play. For any of the preceding reasons, Warframe never really built up the critical attention that AAA games often do. Instead, it quietly improved. morphing with each new update, partnering with a community that helped it prosper. It added...
I just want to quickly add, everything you said about the new player experience is absolutely 100% true. This is why a new experience 3.0 is coming. That's the whole reason why that's coming. It's because everyone in the community and the developers also know that the new player experience in its current state is still very inadequate.
Dozens of characters, introduced 2 new open worlds, released major story-based quests. As the devs often say, Warframe carved out its own little pocket in the loot shooter space. The result is one of the more intriguing phenomenons in modern video games. A massive, successful, thriving title that sites like Gamespot rarely talk about. With so many developers entering the games as service,
I also include IGN, he who only talks about Warframe when and only when the Switch port came out. like seriously, 10 on Live 2018. 10 on Live 2018. After about 2 weeks, I figured, oh hey, what's IGN said about 10 on Live in 2018? Crickets. The only thing they ever talked about was the Switch port, and even then they didn't even say anything. They just added the Switch port trailer to their channel. That's it. That's all they did. So looking at you.
Space, and even more going free to play, Warframe is now more relevant than ever. More developers should learn from it, and if you ask me, we should all be playing it.
More developers looking at you, EA. Grind control. Wow, they really went into the full Fortuna soundtrack
Full
for this.
disclosure, I was super late to the Warframe party. For years I viewed it from a distance, seeing it as just another loot grind too complex to grasp when so many other games were upfront with their ideas. But 3 months ago, over the holidays, I dove in. I've since logged 170 hours. I've collected...
You gotta get those numbers up, bro. Those are rookie numbers.
New characters, built better weapons, upgraded hundreds of mods. I've traveled one of the more rewarding learning curves I can recall, and I still have a ton to learn. If you've tried describing Warframe to someone, you might have found it difficult. Yes, it's a sci-fi action PvE game where you play as space ninjas in a variety of mission types.
Actually, how many hours did he say?
Over the holidays, I dove in. I've since logged 170 hours.
Okay, 170 hours. He may have played the second dream then. SkillUp said that it took him about 100 or so hours before he got to the second dream. So yeah, it's entirely possible this guy's actually played the second dream.
I've collected new characters. Actions, a loot-based game where you play as space ninjas in a variety of mission types. But as a loot-based game, it breaks the mold. Titles such as Anthem, Destiny, Diablo, and Borderlands rely on frequent trickles of weapon drops from dead enemies. You fight better opponents to gain better loot, allowing you to fight even better opponents for even...
Wait, I am on 1080p, right? Okay.
Better loot. Warframe is a grind as well, but in many ways it puts you in control of the grind. You don't gather new equipment in the field, instead you gather the materials to build the weapon, gear, or character you want. Furthermore, you are in charge of the mods or elemental...
Okay, just real quick, you do also sometimes go and grind the gear. This is particularly true for Prime gear, as certain weapon parts that are only dropped from bosses, for example, those you're definitely grinding for the gear itself.
Effects that would already be fixed to items in other games. In Warframe, you have much more say over how your weapons function than you would in Diablo, for example, where you have to respec items with a dice roll to get a build that you like. It's a shame that the mod system seems so complicated at first blush because it's actually one of the more intriguing parts of Warframe. It lets you turn your Boltor assault rifle into a critical hit factory on one mission, then swap in
critical hit factory with the Boltor? Is that even a viable strategy? Boltor has a crit multiplier of 1.8 and a crit chance of 10%. I don't think that's a good idea.
new mods for tons of radiation damage on the next. There are countless combinations of enemies, mission types, and tile sets, and learning to mod your equipment for each prevents Warframe from ever getting stale. I'm reminded of all things of The Matrix. The more I learn Warframe's mod system, and all of its systems really, the more powerful I feel.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
Gaining more power in loot-based games is nothing new, but Warframe doesn't automatically increase numbers for you. It teaches you how to do it yourself. Of course, like Neo, you can also dodge bullets, and of course, like Neo, eventually, you won't have to.
Yep, that's true. At some
What I'm
point.
saying is that despite the presence of RNG, item farming, and some archaic free-to-play tedium, Warframe's grind is nuanced. Warframe's grind is fun to learn. By handing the reins of the power fantasy over to you, Digital Extremes acknowledges that you are an intelligent player capable of dictating your own definition of improvement.
The tenor. I like that.
This is Mark Rosewater. He's head designer of Magic.
I like that font. I really like this font. I wonder if D would like incorporate that at some point. This is a really nice font. And also this color scheme as a whole is really cool. Anyway, moving on.
This is Mark Rosewater. He's head designer of Magic: The Gathering and has been since 2003. Even if you're not into Magic, or for that matter, collectible card games,
I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh guy.
Mark is one of the more insightful people when it comes to game design in general. A few years ago, he coined the term lenticular design. It's taken from lenticular images, those pictures that change depending on the angle you see them from. Mark used this to describe systems that are simultaneously simple to the beginner, but more advanced to the experienced player. I know that sounds like a paradox, but bear with me because it's actually at the heart of many great modern games. Take Overwatch, for example. Many of its characters are lenticular heroes. My favorite example is Tracer. To the beginning player, she has teleportation powers that make her very hard to hit.
And extremely overpowered in Heroes of the Storm.
To the veteran, she's a great skirmisher, someone who can pester enemy groups with little intention of actually killing them. She can buy time for the rest of her team. Tracer is lenticular because in this case, neither the rookie nor the veteran are wrong. Both philosophies are viable in their own way. It's only through time and experience that you'll see her from a different, albeit more useful, angle. Warframe's characters, or frames, are a prime example of this philosophy. Each of them has an obvious theme, from Ember's fire attacks to Mag's use of magnetic abilities.
And her being the best girl.
Then there's Rhino, a frame that relies on tanking and brute force. Those are all the surface level attributes.
Just real quick, also Rhino relies on buffing his allies.
And likely the factors that will help new players
Wait, I think I just demonstrated how lenticular characters work.
decide which frames to use. These are also the characteristics that make experimenting with each of the current 39 characters so fun. Veteran players, however, will see the nuance in their ninjas. Take Mag's Polarize ability. In earlier missions, it's an effective way to do decent crowd damage. It's obvious, it's satisfying, and new players will just get it. If you use the right mods though, Polarize becomes an extremely useful power in high-level missions. It
Yeah, with counterpulse.
damages shielded enemies and reduces the protection of armored marines. It also replenishes the shields of any allies it touches. Here's another example. This is Frost.
Oh, by the way, I think Ashisogi Tedo is also a mag main. Definitely want to check him out if you want to see another opinion of a mag main.
Warframe based around ice powers. The last ability he learns is called Avalanche, which first freezes, then shatters enemies in close proximity. To the beginner, this is his most attractive ability, and they wouldn't be wrong to use it against enemy groups. Seasoned Warframe players, however, will know that in the late game, Frost is best used as a defensive character, specifically with his Snow Globe ability. It creates a protective dome around the frame and his allies, and becomes a major asset in defense missions and difficult boss fights.
Even more seasoned players would also know that when you're using Frost, you actually want to use multiple layers of Snow Globe, because if you use snow globe several times while standing in the same spot, apparently the snow globe actually strengthens. At least that's how I understand it. I don't play Frost.
I could go on for hours about more of this multifaceted character design, but I really don't want to spoil the discoveries you'll have on your own. The last thing I'll say is that the excitement of this lenticular depth doesn't wear off in the later hours. In fact, it's somehow the opposite. Digital Extremes has this talent for making Warframe more intriguing the more you play. You'll get to the point where you have a 10-character rotation and a variety of loadouts for each mission type. It feels like the game is rewiring your brain with each new scenario.
He used the cipher. One of the things that I'll just say this right now. For people who do use ciphers, cool, but the thing that you're gonna find you're gonna struggle with is sortie spy missions, because you can't use ciphers in sortie spies. So definitely one of the things I would recommend is hold off on using the ciphers and actually practice how to hack alarms manually before you start using the ciphers again, you know?
Throws at you. This dependence on colorful heroes with hidden depth is becoming more prevalent by the year. Successful games such as Rainbow Six Siege, Apex Legends, and Overwatch are all proof of that. And if developers haven't already looked to Warframe for inspiration, they should. It's a veritable iceberg of lenticular design and a shining example of deceptive simplicity. This isn't to say Warframe is not flawed though. In fact, I wish the devs would extend this two-sided design to other areas as well. As I've said before, the complexity and learning are a huge part of the game's charms. But sometimes that complexity is less of a funnel and more of a wall. About 5% of my time with Warframe hasn't actually involved playing the game. It's consisted of skimming through wikis and forums.
5%? That's actually surprisingly low. I would probably say about 10%, I'd probably say somewhere between 10 and 15% of my time whilst playing Warframe would be looking through the wiki to find very important information about weapons, Warframes, and other gameplay mechanics. These days I probably don't need to spend too much time, but I do actually jump on the wiki quite a lot.
Some objectives are too vague, some crafting materials too hidden for me to call it clever. Sometimes it feels as if Warframe uses complexity just because it can. Now, I'm not saying Digital Extremes should explain each and every little thing to the player, but I do think the player base would benefit if the studio found ways to ease newcomers into a few more of its intricacies. A more hands-on modding tutorial, for example, or a simple prompt saying, focus on clearing the star chart, most of the game will unfold from there. These would do wonders for rookie players, and more players are only going to benefit everyone involved.
Okay. This is probably my own veteran bias showing, but I actually don't think that modding is that particularly difficult. When you know, I guess you just need to know that like certain mods exist that are typically used all the time. Your staple mods, for example, your damage mods, your multi-shot mods. For melee weapons, you've got that damage mod. You might also call attack speed mods mandatory staple mods as well. I don't know, like it just maybe with melee it's probably a little bit more tricky because you have to think about, oh, do I want to use blood rush at all, or do I want to use memeing strike, etc., etc. But for primary and secondary, I don't know, it seems pretty simple. Not simple, but it seems pretty standard in that every build will have the damage mod, any and all multi-shot mods, possibly a fire rate mod, and then at least 2 mods that will give you a combined elemental, and then you have like 3 slots left, potentially, or 4 or something rather, for crit chance, if not crit damage, more crit chance and crit damage, and potentially something special. And then of course if you introduce Rivens, that's an entirely different thing, but by the time you get Rivens, you should be able to figure out like how you want to build your weapon. At most, like me personally, I only have one special build that totally does not follow that that standard chain, and that would be the Cryotra build, simply because that is a pure utility build, and there is a reason why I'm not using any damage mods. But I am using one multi-shot mod, but that's less to do with the fact that it's multi-shot and more to do with the fact that it's vigilante armaments. So, anyway, I don't know. I don't think it's that difficult once you just need to get used to it, I guess. Maybe when you first come across it as a new player, it is quite daunting, and I think it was actually slightly daunting, I guess. But it's just really once you get into it, especially now that you don't have to use different mods all the time. Like back in the old days, you needed to have multiple copies of Serration in order to use it with, say, your Sentinel weapon. These days, you don't have to do that anymore, so that's really, really good. So now that you only need one copy of each mod to use across multiple weapons and all that jazz. Sorry, did I say it between your weapon and your Sentinel weapon? No. Sorry, different weapons required different copies of the same mod. So for example, I have my Paris Prime and I have my Sonos Prime, and both of these weapons want to use Serration. I actually needed to use 2 copies of Serration in order to facilitate that back in the old days. These days, no, because different weapons of the same class can hold the same mods at the same time because you're only using one of them at any given point in time. Whereas still, though, if you're using, let's say, the Cryotra, and you want to put Serration on that, you need another copy of Serration, so that continues to be the same. But back in the old days, you actually needed to have multiple copies of Serration, which made it really, really hard to mod things, among other reasons. But my point is, I don't know, I just feel like modding is not as difficult as people are making it out to be, but I'm probably 100% wrong because I'm not a new player. Getting those mods, though, that might be the tricky part. But modding itself, once you get used to it, and I don't think it takes too long to get used to the idea of just saying, okay, I need this, and then I'll probably need this, and this. I don't know, maybe not as difficult. Living the dream. One thing I want to point out is, We All Lived Together is a video that has a shocking number of views. 6 million views! Is that even Warframe's, like, highest viewed video of all time? Sort by most popular. I think it... Oh, it's not. It's the Plains of Eidolon Accolades trailer. Okay. Second most viewed video in all of Warframe's channel is We All Bloody Lived Together, and it is so good. Anyway, let's continue.
It's telling that it's taken me this long to address the free-to-play elephant in the room. I rarely felt the need to spend real money, and when I did, I didn't regret it. Forgive my hyperbole here, but more than any game I've played, Warframe feels like a partnership between the developers and me. I was happy to give them money. I was happy to support the studio in this ongoing endeavor. There's an example highlighted in NoClip's documentary that perfectly sums up Digital Extreme's views on monetization. When the studio released Kubros, the game's canine combat companions, it allowed you to pay real money for randomized fur patterns and appearances. Upon seeing that one player had pulled that metaphorical lever over 200 times, the team realized it had created a slot machine. They promptly pulled the feature to prevent further excessive gambling. So, in essence, Digital Extremes pulled a microtransaction feature because one player had used it too many times. Digital Extremes has done so many things it did not need to do. It added 2 open worlds to a game that previously relied on rapid-fire missions. It allowed talented community artists to sell their own armor sets. During the week I began to write the script, the team released Nightwave, a series of daily and weekly challenges framed as an in-game radio show. There's even a twist in the mid-game hours that single-handedly changed my perception of what exactly Warframe is.
Confirmed.
But the community is surprisingly great about not spoiling this, so I'll honor that here. And that's as good an example as...
Ooh, although I feel like the cinematic trailer for the new player experience that's coming up is probably gonna spoil it. I don't know. I feel like we as a community need to determine whether or not spoiling that is now fair game or not. We'll have to see.
As any to characterize Warframe's community. Like any group dedicated to something they love, it has its occasional sore spots. The get good mentality in particular rears its ugly head in the late game hours. But take one trip to the Warframe forums, ask for help through the in-game chat, jump into Digital Extreme's DevStream, a bi-weekly show that's coming up on its 126th episode. At each and every turn, Warframe emphasizes cooperation.
I think the latest dev stream. The latest dev stream would be 129.
Between players, developers, Tenogen artists, and YouTube creators alike. The theme song for the recent Fortuna update sums this up perfectly. We all lift together.
Together.
Warframe is many things. It's a case study for community involvement. It's a paragon for free-to-play standards. It's a masterclass in multifaceted design, and now, at the end of my video, there are countless things I wish I could have touched on. But I'll end by saying this. There is no wrong time to start playing Warframe. In fact, I would say now is the best time. With more studios joining the free-to-play scene and even more seeking balance in their progression systems, Warframe is the game we should be looking to. It began as a product of what games were, but has since become an example of what games can be. And its age doesn't make it antiquated or obsolete. Warframe's age makes it a monument. And it's time we all started paying attention.
I wonder if this guy played TSD and all that jazz on stream. It'd be very interesting to see how he reacted to it live for the first time. Like those kinds of reactions are what people really enjoy about Warframe, is just seeing how people who've never played the game before, they are playing for like 100 or so hours. Then they come across Uranus, they come across a sentient that just shows up, and they're like, "Oh, what the hell is that?" Right? And then they go through Natar, and they're like, "Wait, what? Lotus is who now?" And then, oh shit, I just spoiled it. Whatever. They're like, "What? Wait, who? Lotus is what now?" And then they go through the second dream, and they're like, "Bro, are you serious?" Like those kinds of reactions are what make this game really, really good. Anyway. Cool. So that is You Should Be Playing Warframe by Gamespot, celebrating the 6th, although I think it's 7th birthday. Well, or maybe not. I might be wrong about that one. So that was Gamespot's You Should Be Playing Warframe video. Overall, it was pretty good, actually. I pretty much agree with almost everything, except for maybe a handful of bits and pieces that I brought up. One thing I want to add, towards the very end, I actually forgot to say that a point that was made about like the state of the game now and how it's continuing to grow. Obviously, we know that it's going to explode very soon, whether it's going to be in the fall, which is unlikely, or whether it's going to be around Christmas time. This game's going to explode with Empyrean, so I'm really excited for that. It'd be very interesting to see what this guy has to say about Empyrean when he gets around to it, to trying that out, because it's just a totally different gameplay style to pretty much everything else in the game. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Who's a good dog? Bye.